weekend of August 11th started a chain of events that years from now will be recorded in textbooks across the United States. Charlottesville, Virginia was the venue of one of the most controversial riots in U.S. history that provoked many citizens to act out with violence that caused one fatality. When called on to address the situation, President Trump failed to announce the real reason that caused the riot and why. He wanted to put the verbal alt-right people in the same political spectrum as the counter-protesters who stood up against the hate. This would cause public figures like politicians and athletes to take a stand and address the real issues that failed to be addressed by President Trump and company. The National Football League protests received more attention because players took a knee during the national anthem in protest for unity and empowerment. In this speech, I would like you to inform you on the events that took place in Charlottesville, issues of racism and bigotry in this country, and explain the actual reason people like Colin Kaepernick and LeBron James and many other Americans are taking a knee against inequality. Now, let's start by talking about how the riot began. On the night of August 11, 2017, in Charlottesville, Virginia, a riot was incited by a group of racial extremists. The Unite the Right rally, as it was called, was organized for an alleged protest of the removal of the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. It stopped being a rally and started being a riot on the night of Friday, August 11th. Torch-wielding white supremacists marched onto the campus of the University of Virginia, fighting with counter-demonstrators and student activists. As they marched, they chanted the Nazi slogan, "Blood and Soil," and sang the mantra of the Ku Klux Klan, "You will not replace us." The next day, August 12th, is when the riot turned violent. Right-wing extremists battled with left-wing extremists and counter-protesters until a man identified by law enforcement as James Alex Fields drove his car into a crowd of counter-demonstrators. Doing so, he injured 19 people and killed one. Her name was Heather Heyer. She was 32 years old. This was considered an act of domestic terrorism. Later in that day, a man named DeAndre Harris was chased and beaten with wooden poles after cursing at white nationalists and wearing clothing with curses written on them, aimed toward the Ku Klux Klan. From that beating, he received 8 staples for a head laceration, a concussion, a fractured forearm, and spinal damage. The next day after the riot turned violent, President Trump held a press conference to address the nation on what happened in Charlottesville. On Sunday, August 13th, President Trump addressed the nation on the events that occurred in Charlottesville, Virginia. President Trump's statement was as follows. We condemn in the strongest possible terms the egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides, it's been going on for a long time in our country. Not Donald Trump, not Barack Obama. This has been going on for a long, long time. End quote. One side spread hate, chanted Nazi slogans, and started violence, leaving 1 person dead and 19 injured. On the contrary, the other side demonstrated a nonviolent protest against hatred and bigotry. President Trump's comments were unpresidential and did not address the full truth, which was the white supremacists gathered in Charlottesville to spread hate and violence. Members of Congress around the country shared their opinions against President Trump's comments. Many senators via social media expressed their disagreement with the president. Even Congress, men and women from the Republican Party, showed their outrage over the comments. Americans were infuriated after Trump's address of the nation. Public figures took a meaningful stand against Trump's comments by not standing at all. Athletes, activists, and public figures used their platform to take an ununanimous stand against racism and the president's comments. In an effort to protest the National Football League, players took a knee during the national anthem to symbolize unity and power. Colin Kaepernick pioneered the anthem protest the year before because he did not want to show pride in the flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. President Trump responded to the players' protest via Twitter, calling on NFL owners to fire any son of a bitch who disrespects the flag. The protest caused controversy because people felt it disrespected the flag and our nation's military by acting unconstitutional. In the U.S. flag code, it does not say that standing for the national anthem is required, nor shows disrespect to the flag. Every citizen has the right to protest their beliefs. Professional athletes use their platforms because they know their voices will be heard and not silenced. The events that occurred in Charlottesville, Virginia will be remembered as a gathering for different white supremacist groups to come and incite terror and spread their beliefs. President Donald Trump failed to address a serious problem our country is facing, the increase of ignorance and bigotry amongst the American people. Public figures using their status to make citizens aware that racism cannot be part of this fabric of this nation is key. Nobody is born hating another person for the color of their skin, background, or race. People learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. That was said by Nelson Mandela. That's the end of my speech.
That was 6 minutes and 5 seconds.